Today, in the media conference with Lal Goyal, which is brought to you by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon se, Samaj Saroकार News, Bharat Post News, Organization India Foundation and Gyan. Our endeavor is to enlighten you with the current topic. But before I will go on the current topic, I would like to inform you that today we have lost a finest actor, that is Padam Vibhushan Dilip Kumar ji. Muhammad Yusuf Khan, known professionally as Dilip Kumar, was born on 11th December 1922, was a film producer, actor and philanthropist, best known for his works in Hindi cinema. Referred as the first Khan, he has been credited for bringing a distinct form of method acting techniques to cinema. Mr. Dilip Kumar holds the record for most wins for the Filmfare Award for Best Actors 8 times and was also the inaugural recipient of the award. He won the prestigious Dada Saheb Phalke Award in 1994. He was honored with Padam Shri in 1991 and Padam Vibhushan in 2015 by Government of India. He was also honored by Government of Pakistan by bestowing him Nishane-e-Imtaj, one of the highest civilian award in Pakistan. Media conference with Lal Goyal paid tribute to one of the finest actor of India, Mr. Dilip Kumar. Now coming to our main topic, the main topic is Youth Conclave on Good Governance. In international development, good governance is a way of measuring how public institutions conduct public affairs and manage public resource in a preferred way. Governance is the process of decision making and the process by which decisions are implemented or not implemented. Governance in this context can apply to corporate, international, national or local governance, as well as the interactions between other sectors of society. The concept of good governance thus emerges as a model to compare ineffective economic or political bodies with viable economies and political bodies. The concept centers on the responsibility of the governments and governing bodies to meet the needs of the masses as opposed to select groups in society. Because countries often described as most successful are liberal democratic states concentrated in Europe and the Americas, good governance standards often measures other state institutions against these states. Aid organizations and the authorities of developed countries often will focus the meaning of good governance to a set of requirements that conform to the organization's agenda, making good governance imply many different things in many different contexts. The opposite of good governance as a concept is bad governance. In the 1992 report entitled Governance and Development, the World Bank set out its definition of the good governance. It defined good governance as the manner in which power is exercised in the management of a country's economic and social resources for development. Good governance has 8 major characteristics. It is participatory, consciousness-oriented, accountable, transparent, responsive, effective and efficient, equitable and inclusive, and follows the rule of law. It assures that corruption is minimized, the views of minorities are taken into account, and voices the most vulnerable in society are heard in decision making. It is also responsive to the present and future needs of society. People should be able to voice their own opinions through legitimate, immediate organizations or representatives. This includes men and women, vulnerable sections of society, backward classes, minorities, etc. Participation also implies freedom of association and expression. Legal framework should be enforced impartially, especially on human rights laws. Without rule of law, politics will follow the principle of Matsya Nyaya, that is law of fish, which means the strong will prevail over the weak. Consensus oriented decision making ensures that even if everyone does not achieve what they want to the fullest, a common minimum can be achieved by everyone, which will not be detrimental to anyone. It mediates differing interests to meet the broad consensus on the best interests of a community. Good governance assures an equitable society. People should have opportunities to improve or maintain their well-being. Processes and institutions should be able to produce results that meet the needs of their community. Resources of the community should be used effectively for the maximum output. Good governance aims towards betterment of people, and this cannot take place without the government being accountable to the people. Governmental institutions, private sectors, and civil or society organizations should be held accountable to the public and institutional stakeholders. Information should be accessible to the public and should be understandable and monitored. It also means free media and access of information to them. Institutions and processes should serve all stakeholders in a reasonable period of time. Of the 100% of the population of India, 65% of the massive population includes today's youth. And the importance of youth participation in democracy and good governance cannot be in any way underestimated. In fact, they play a very major role in uplifting a country's stature. A democracy depends upon the will of the majority, and youth comprises the majority in India. The youth of India has a very important role to play in shaping India, exercising their rights to vote. The Constitution having the youth bestowed with the right to vote is itself a blessing for the country. Social services to the society. By offering their services to the society, the youth will indeed spread a positive vibe all over the country, spreading awareness in rural areas. There are places in India, villages especially, where the people don't even know what their basic rights are, what they can demand, and what are they entitled for. Due to this unawareness, many people remain aloof from the services they could easily enjoy, making the lives of themselves and their families much easier. Here, the youth can play their part by imparting the knowledge to the rural areas by setting up awareness camps from village to villages. This is, in return, will develop the country as a whole. Being a responsible citizen themselves, to tell others what to do and what not to do is easy. Looking at others and criticizing them is even easier, but what is difficult is realizing one's own mistakes and rectifying them. Flowing with the wrong trends, the youth of today tend to adopt some habits which are not at all inspirational. What good can they do to this democracy and governance when they can't do any good to themselves? Once the youth of today understands their responsibility of being a good citizen, it is only then they can do well to the country. For every single responsible citizen is what makes the country a better place to live. The effective functioning of governance is the prime concern of every citizen of the country. The citizens are ready to pay the price for good services offered by the state, but what is required is a transparent, accountable, and intelligible governance system, absolutely free from bias and prejudice. There is a need to reformulate our national strategy to accord primacy to the Gandhian philosophy of Antodaya to restore good governance in the country. India should also focus on developing probity in governance, which will make the governance more ethical. And to discuss this very, very important topic of good governance, today we have youths and we have our chief guest. And I would like to invite and introduce my chief guest of the program today. And he is Professor Dr. K. Sankaran. Professor Dr. K. Sankaran is the director of Justice K.S. Hegde Institute of Management, NITTE. He is BTech Honors from IIT Kharagpur, PGDM from IIM Bangalore. He has done PhD from Kent State University, USA. He has several years of academic experience in India, US, UK, Middle East, and East Asia. He started his career with Tata's. He has several years of experience in management, consulting, and project management. Dr. Sankaran has widely published his articles in highly rated international journals such as the Strategic Management Journal and Journal of Marketing Management and many others. Currently, he is researching in the area of higher education governance and andragogy. Welcome, Dr. K. Sankaran, on our show. Dr. K. Sankaran, you are such an experienced person, especially in the governance, because you have not only worked in India, but you have worked abroad, and you are in the different countries. You have seen their governance. You have also worked in a very, very, I must say, the renowned and the top private sector company, that is Tata Motors. When you have worked with the Tatas, sorry, I don't know whether you have worked with Tata Motors, but Tatas. Now the Tatas group itself is having known for their good governance. And you have worked with all the top like USA, UK, Middle East, and East Asia. So everywhere you have worked, you have seen the good governance very closely. But we would like to know your views on the good governance. Dr. K. Sankaran, please unmute.
Good morning, Mr. Lal Goel. It's always a pleasure to be on your panel, and especially this time with so many youngsters, and two of my dear students are also here, and other students, the dear students, is always good to interact with youth, and I guess that's why I gravitated towards academia. This is a very, very important subject, of course, and that's why you have chosen it. And I really congratulate you for taking up this issue. I have 20 minutes, so I will go through this somewhat very quickly. And I think I will frame my position in terms of 4 different things. And actually, if there is some clarification required, I could be stopped, of course, in between also. Otherwise, at the end, I'm sure we will have an opportunity to have a conversation. So first, I will start with a quick summary of definition. Mr. Goel has already outlined very quickly. He has given us the entire scope of this, but I'll just touch on it very quickly. Then I will talk about 4 dimensions of governance, and then I'll follow that up with markers of good governance. Since the topic is on good governance, how do we know there is good governance? It's mutual. The regulator as well as the regulated have some roles, or the governor, the governors or people who are governing, as well as those who are governed, have a certain role. And finally, I'll talk about the movement we can have, especially in our country, from regulations to governance to what I call mutual engagement. So that is really not happening, and that's what we need. And for that, we need to drop some habits of the past. So I'll talk about that. First definition, second, 4 dimensions of governance, third, markers of good governance, and finally, a movement from regulations to governance to mutual engagement. Originally, actually, the word governance really meant something that was akin to oversight. And over a period of time, the word governance has come to mean something much more than, oversight or lordship. So that is a new avatar. And even in Shakespeare, in Henry IV, he uses the word governance to mean some kind of oversight, which is a bit unsavory and a kind of a lordship. But now it has come to mean something much better. UNESCO actually describes, I thought this was a good short definition, it as structures and processes. And I would add to it, in the current context of how, for instance, what we mean by structures, structures have this a little bit of sense of overlordship coming from the top. So I would say design. So design and process, if we can say, that are there to ensure accountability, transparency, responsiveness, rule of law, stability, equity, and inclusiveness, empowerment, and broad-based participation. So this is roughly what governance to me also means. We could, it's quite all-encompassing. Now, as Mr. Lal Goel said, definitions are one thing, practice is something else. So I think we have to be extremely careful in looking at our own field of activities and giving shape to our own sense of what governance is. That's extremely important, that we will be taking responsibility for our own sphere of influence. So what is that sphere of influence? It's about 4 dimensions. Now, the first dimension is information. Creation of awareness of rights and responsibilities as a citizen, a consumer, or as an employer, or as an employee, and actually, or as a colleague for that matter, or as a teacher, or as a student. So we have to actually be a little bit, according to my understanding now, as I observe people, I want to make it really practice oriented. We need to be a little bit more discursive and say why we are doing certain things. Anyway, chalega, then let's just get things done. It really creates problems. I keep telling everybody, my students, that there's a difference between crisis management and debris management. Crisis management is actually about anticipating things, while debris management, after everything has fallen down, you're just holding a gun to a person and say that now you survive. So it's very important to have information properly disseminated, and you must actually accept the intelligence of the person at the other end, both as a person who is regulating as well as a regulator. Information. For instance, FIR. Now, how many of us know, though we are all educated people, that FIR can actually be developed by the police? It's written by the police, by the complainant sitting at home, for instance. Right to information. So we have a lot of things that are there, but we need to have much greater exposure to these. So I would urge educational institutions, the press, the media, to actually not just give all this information all at once, but depending on the context, they should really be having an attitude towards information dissemination, which is useful to people, and especially people at the, I would say at the, for lack of a better word, bottom of the pyramid kind of thing. Second dimension is about equity and ease of access to services. Like, for instance, now the central government is talking about one ration card for the entire country. That is a governance issue, really. You can go from place to place. Ease of access is possible. Third is equity and access to opportunities like education, health, public distribution, etc. Fourth is opportunity for reverse communication. So it's very, very important to take feedback. And again, it's extremely important to have a system whereby a certain privacy is maintained. So when we make this distinction between privacy and transparency, we have to be extremely careful. Privacy is for the individual. Transparency is for public institutions. When people come together, they should be more transparent. But when it is a private person, his privacy, depending upon the person's disposition towards giving out information about herself, should be, of course, be respectful of his or her privacy. Obviously, institutions ask you for certain information. That information should be, of course, divulged, but it cannot be under duress, and it has to be under the, a discussion has to take place before all this, so that we know what we can give out and what we need not give out. So these are the 4 dimensions of governance. And I think it's very, very important to understand why we need governance in the first place. We need governance because fundamentally, I mean, this is a philosophical issue, and I'm fond of saying this all the time. I've said this to students also. That is, it's all about self versus others. So a lot of things have been written about self versus others. So a healthy society happens when we really have, we are able to take care of ourselves, and through that process, we are able to also recognize the rights and responsibilities of others and give that. So it's a very fine equilibrium. We need others. Psychologists have done studies where they found that if you are alone, life can be absolutely, we all know, can be absolutely miserable. We need others. So negotiating the self versus other is the most important. That's what really governance is about. And self is not a fixed entity. I think this is a very, very important for us. In our hurry to kind of typify people and get things done, we tend to slot people into categories. I think it's very, very important to understand the self is an evolving process that comes out of, the environment in which we are. So I have seen people behaving very, very differently. Groups of people, for instance, Indians behaving elsewhere very, very differently because they have that kind of environment. So I'm an environmental oriented person because at the end of the day, all of us are looking for happiness and freedoms. And that is what can be, granted by proper governance. A very interesting thing to look for governance in my personal experience is the Japanese. So when you talk about the Kaizen, for instance, it's action, it's involvement of people, it is flow of information, smooth flow of information, including all the people in the scheme of things. It's not about a grand strategy being applied from top down. That, to me, from my research, I find that is actually a Western idea. It's not even an Indian idea, though it has become Indian because of colonization. That is, the seers and the doers are different. That is not the way it is. So Japanese are a living example for me. I have dealt with them as even colleagues from the East Asian. I had some Taiwanese colleagues when I was doing my doctoral studies. I've seen Japanese as business partners when I was working with Tata Economic Consultancy. That's my first job with the Tatas. That was a McKinsey at that time of India, actually, in the 80s. I've dealt with them. So I think it's very important to understand the incremental process by which we make things happen. So it's not a grand strategy. So governance is about, one step at a time, small step at a time. Signaling is important. All these things are important because regulation means, I'll come to that later. It's about kind of very top heavy imposition on others. That needs to be avoided when you talk about governance. Markers of good governance. I have 8 minutes. I will very quickly go through this. Markers of good governance. I think are systems and processes or designs and processes that are fair, where power is used minimally and in a manner that is thought through for the benefit of large number of people. So we need to actually look at our egos very, very carefully, power orientation. Number 2, systems and processes are efficient. That is, speed and resource use are minimal. That is the next marker of good governance. Third, speed, that is time and resource, of course. Third, seeks feedback and acts on it. This is extremely, extremely important. Now, for this, it's not enough for institutions to seek it, but also for the people at the, at the larger level to understand that feedback will be taken and it will be considered. And those things it may not be possible to implement it on day one, but awareness is created. Again, the Indian ethos is very interesting in this because if mind is superior to materiality, we can hold these different things in the mind at one time, and then all these things can issue forth in authentic action. And we can talk about this at a later time because the mind is ahead of the materiality. So, so long as you're authentic, you can hold all these things, and as time passes, you can actually start implementing these things. And there should be a certain amount of leisure for this. Sometimes that doesn't happen because everything is done in a hurry. In our country, we have become so good at acting so quickly and reversing our decisions so quickly backwards. That's not governance. There is a future orientation. So processes are more important. Means are extremely important. And it kind of says that means are more important. I don't want to say too much about it. That doesn't mean that ends are not important. Ends have to be checked constantly to make sure that the means actually are on track. But it is not done by somebody else. It has to be done by yourself. So it becomes a very active feedback mechanism. Then fifth one is quality of people who manage it. They should be knowledgeable. Their conduct is very, very important. They should be trainable, able to make wise exceptions. This is very, very important. I've seen in the West, they make wise exceptions because the person is in trouble. But here, since rule is so important, the most favorable people, the nicest people in society can be very draconian. So they should have the courage to say, I'm following the spirit of the law, and that is more important than following the rules, especially in a post-colonial situation that we are in even today after 70 years of our independence. I'll take next 5 minutes to, in my fourth point, again, going back, I will not summarize again. I talked about definition. I talked about 4 dimensions of governance, starting from information dissemination. I talked about the importance of both upward and downward communication and other things about equity and so on. And third, I talked about markers of good governance. How do we know these are good governance? And this applies to me with my students, with my colleagues, in every little bit of thing that I deal with. This is it should be on top of my mind and awareness. The last one I'm going to talk about, this movement from regulations to governance to what I call mutual engagement or ethical discourse. Regulations are about things given from top and you follow it. And when you follow regulations, even if you think this regulation is not really helping the spirit, unless it's really draconian and is going to affect an individual or an organization very badly, you will just go with that regulation, say, okay, this time let me go with it. But at the back of the mind, you're saying that I'm going to be a change agent for changing this regulation for something better. So in that, exceptions are also there. So I always tell myself, the greatest leadership is when they make exceptions to the rule and openly say that I made this rule for this reason. Okay. So actually, of course, yeah, that's about mutual engagement, but let me talk about regulations. So regulations are given to us and we follow it whether you like it or not. But governance is actually about deeper conversation. And as we said, it's about designing, flexible structures and processes and making sure that, whatever we have set in place improves over time. Now, this requires a lot of, giving opportunities for us to change. And in government, it is in our country, it has probably started, but it has a long way to go. The only place where I thought, maybe because I also took interest, where there was a lot of feedback taken was Kasturi Rangan Committee for National Education Policy. Members were people like Manjul Bhargava, so very highly effective, action-oriented people, as well as very, very smart people in the universities. They were there in that. They took almost 3 lakh different feedback. They took lakhs of feedback from people. And I was told that they used to underline it as green, yellow, and red by sitting together and saying, what are the things we could change? And that's why this NEP has actually escaped any kind of great public, criticism. There was only one criticism which was corrected in 2 days when NEP in 2019 came. And I attributed one thing, of course, the smartness of the people, but more than smartness, their willingness to listen. And that's why it is kind of, and actually governance are not about being so specific. It's about the spirit. So that spirit has to be understood. That requires education of a different kind and not this exam-based education where you regurgitate. I'm telling these students, and I've done a lot of thinking about pedagogy after seeing even eastern parts of the world, like Hong Kong or Kuala Lumpur and Singapore. I was fortunate, and I've seen the world from the West and the East. And I developed a course on comparative corporate governance when I was in University of Strathclyde, the first 2-credit course. I'm really, really happy I did something like that, very culturally rooted. So I could understand the West and the Japanese and so on. So it's very important to make it culturally relevant. So governance is that. And the last leg of the journey from regulations to governance is mutual engagement. Let me tell you, regulations, I've written extensively. I don't want to talk about it here. Very, very critical of some regulatory agencies in our country in the education sector. That's because there is no feedback. So for instance, an idea like accreditation, I think all of us should understand, this is an academic discourse for me, is really about collegiality. It's about professional collegiality, where people come and say, I could do so many lovely things in my university. I would like to say what I did in those places. And based on your mission, what is it that you can do? Let's have a conversation. So you have a mentor who works with you for, as long as 10 years and make sure that he's on your side. It's like a doctor who says you have to be so strict initially, but later who says, okay, now you can relax a little bit, and then, kind of a thing. So there are structural mechanisms available for all these things, regulatory things, but then it's not about, I know better than you. I don't know anything better than my students. My students are smarter. They are younger and smarter with their fingers. But all I have is, this experience of age. It's 20 minutes now. I'll just take 1 minute, sir, with your permission.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So regulations to governance is about a conversation on systems. Now we can go beyond governance. For that, we have to touch base with the fundamentals of why we are having this. For that mutual engagement, we should really know what are ethical discourse. And I'm sorry to say this, we don't give any importance to this. And I can tell you, in the West, in the MBA course, if I say you're being a consequentialist but you're not being a deontologist, they understand it. Okay. Now we don't have anything equivalent to say it because we are not sure whether we should follow it also. Because deontology and consequentialism all assumes a lot of duality. It's about imposing things from outside. And while we talk about internal autonomy and we talk about moksha for self, but we are completely confused. I'm sorry to say this. I must say this. So non-duality is not part of the Indian psyche, though we have, of course, non-dual systems in so-called pramanas. I mean, I don't want to get into this. And we can actually accommodate the world, complete world, irrespective of which continent it comes from. West can also accommodate it, but last 400 years, they chose this duality mode, governance versus governed, left versus right, capitalists versus leftists, and so on. So in that context, they can talk about, ethical discussion. But if you talk about it, when I talk, people don't find it extremely interesting because it doesn't gel with the kind of thinking that goes on at the more fundamental level. So it's a movement from regulations plus something else that becomes governance, plus something else becomes deeply mutual engagement, where there is 360 degrees conversation between all the people involved, while at the same time being extremely regulation oriented and being very practical and being unequivocal in making decisions. I think I will stop. Thank you, sir, for this wonderful opportunity to have a conversation with your, with your wide angle. I'm really amazed at, how you handle so many different ideas and things. And you bring in some wonderful people. I've been watching a lot of your program. And also this wonderful group of students who are here, who are bunking their classes. And I'm one to say that if you are actually getting better out of this, you should bunk. But you must have an exam, which is where you should be absolutely, absolutely above board and say that I can pass this exam. I want to do something else. You should have the courage, and we should give an opportunity to say this to our students. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sankaran, for giving your very, very informative, inspirational talk. And you have given all the aspects in a very, very proper way. And this shows how experienced you are. And that is why we always choose to call someone who is really expert and authority in that topic. And when Dr. Sankaran was mentioning about the ration card, I am very proud to say that this idea was mooted on the media conference with Lal Goyal, on our conference only. And the suggestion came, why not we should have a one nation, one ration card. And when this suggestion was forwarded to the government of India, they happily accepted it. About 8 suggestions which were mooted on our last one year, or I will say 16 months duration of our media conference with Lal Goyal, where those suggestions were accepted by the government of India. It's a very, very unique thing, I must say. Even the first thing which was accepted was the 10% of the GDP to be put in the economy, which they have done it, which was also suggested in our conference. So what Dr. Sankaran has said today, I am sure that these types of positive things, if we are talking to criticize any government or any society, is very easy. But yes, one has to criticize, but we must have a solution also. So if you are giving solutions, then you can improve the governance. And I personally feel, which I'm sure the Dr. Sankaran is authority, that even a good governance is also required in your household. If you are in a house, you require a good governance. And and good governance required everything. You have to see how the child or your younger siblings, how they are behaving, how to control them without harming their interest. And that is very, very important. If we can do this good governance at our house, we can do in society, in the state, and we can do it in the nation. Thank you very much, Dr. Sankaran, for giving a very good opening today. I must say that what you have said now. Now let's hear what our youth guest has to say. Thank you very much, Dr. Sankaran. Now I would like to invite my first youth guest, and she is Miss Akshta Ranjal. Miss Akshta Ranjal, you have heard our chief guest, Dr. K. Sankaran, and he has explained everything in detail. Now we would like to know from you your views on good governance. Miss Akshta Ranjal, please. Please unmute.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Good morning, all. I'm Akshata Ranjal. I'm a second year electronics and communication engineering student from SMVITM, Bantakal. And we have been listening to Dr. Sankaran and Lal Goyal, sir, about what good governance is. They have given an outline about it. But as once said by John Carver, governance, personal issues, or it's not about the equipment approvals. It's basically about the values, vision, and about the strategic leadership. This seems to be true so far as we concern our own organizations. Governance is not only meant, it's basically process of decision making, and it's a process in which the decisions are being implemented. But then when it comes to governance, it's not only about the national governments or about the international governance. It's also about the corporate governance. As Mr. Lal Goyal sir said, if we can manage what our siblings or what our elders or what our youngers are doing in our home, like it's a good governance. Even a small organization or even a local community acts as an organization. So the governance here becomes more important to have collaboration with and to experience the mutual growth. So as Lal Goyal said, back in 1992, good governance was stated by World Bank as it's the manner in which the power is exercised in management of the country's economic and social resources for development. I think beyond economic and social resources, there is something which has to be added on, but then we're not much clear about what has to be added on so as to make it or to take it to the next level of good governance. Sir, as Lal Goyal sir has told, there are basically 8 characteristics of good governance, such as transparency, accountable, responsibility, effective and efficient, follows the rules and regulations, and so on. But then the main thing is that although we have said the characteristics, like as Dr. K. Sankaran sir told, government is not about perfection. It's about the spirit. It's always a mutual understanding and give and take between the government, that is the system, the people who are governing, and also the people who are being governed. So how important? It's as important as how people take decisions to govern citizens. It's as important as it is to people or the citizens to know why are the rules being done to them or what are the rules, because so many people here really don't know what decisions are actually being implemented on them, or they even don't know that what are the policies they have been given. They have been facilitated with so many categories and policies, but then I think people are not that aware about it to that extent. For an example, I would take the example of I have just come across this National Portal of India. It's about, I think there is an evidence of transparency of the government, because in that portal we can get into get information about what are the decisions made by the government, or what are the rules that are being regulated or being imposed on the citizens. So if we take into consideration of an educational institution, for example, it's always a hierarchical level, that a president, secretary, and then the principal, and then finally the students. It's always the mutual understanding or coordination between the institutional council and the student parliament or the student council. So it's better to be mutually coordinated. It's not like we are blaming, like citizens are not only to blame the government for what it is doing wrong. As Dr. K. Sankran sir told, and as Lal Goyal sir said, it's easier to criticize, but then realizing one's mistake is, it has to be done. It has so much of need in nowadays, because it's not that easy. It's like we have to analyze any of the things that have been imposed on us, that or which is being done on us. Directly criticizing it without analyzing it can pose a major problem. And then I have to mention this, as Dr. K. Sankran sir told, he mentioned as the third marker of good governance as having feedback. So I'm very happy to mention this, that I have come across this CPGRAMS. It's basically Centralized Public Grievance Redress and Monitoring System. It is basically an online online platform where we can put forward our inconveniences or our grievances or our suggestions about the government policies. Actually, people are not aware of this, as I know, because I just came to know about this a few days ago, because as I had to do some research on what good governance is, and I came across this. One of my peers suggested me to get into this website. This is CPGRAMS, and it has proven that one of the person from Madhya Pradesh, maybe, he has given a complaint and it has been rectified. His problem, his grievance has been noted and it's been rectified. So this is where the the link is missing. The government is initializing something, but the citizens are not, the policies or the privileges that government produces, it's not being reached to, the citizens are not getting to know about it. No, they are not utilizing it, I think. So there must be some work done in order to get to people know about certain privileges that they have been offered. Even now, the government has transformed to e-governance. There is a transition taking place from practical government, that is the normal governance, to
Please be
the
brief.
e-governance. So so it's important for citizens to know about what they are being implemented on and what are the facilities that are being given. And as I said, while analyzing, it is always recommendable to think of what is right rather than who is right. I think this might, the chances of conflicts will be decreased by this concept of thinking what is right instead of who is right. And that's all I had to say. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Ms. Akshta Ranjal, for giving your views. You rightly said that the government is informing to the people, but people are not getting the information. I just would like to add one thing. Today, in this pandemic time, government is informing from the D-Day one that please wear the mask, please keep a social distancing, please have hand sanitization, etc. But whenever there is an unlocking start after the lockdown, what we are watching on the media, every time so many people coming, crowding without wearing mask. So responsibility of good governance, as our chief guest has also mentioned, is not of the government only, but of the citizens also. Because if you are not going to, if the citizens will not adhere or not to follow the laws or the rules or the notifications from the government time to time, then the good governance can't take place. And then what will happen? That the government has to take some strong actions, and that will be termed as a coercive actions, and then then the people will say it's not a good governance. But whose fault is? It's our fault. So we have to follow whatsoever the government is saying. As Dr. Shankar has also mentioned, if you have a dissent, you can have a dissent, but doesn't mean that you will be not following this. And then you can write it as you have mentioned a portal. Thank you very much, Ms. Akshata, for giving your views. Dr. Shankaran, would you like to interact here, or afterwards you will give your this thing? Please unmute. Please unmute. Please unmute.
I think afterwards will be.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Okay. Now I would like to invite my next youth guest, and he is Mr. Dhanush. Mr. Dhanush, you have heard what our chief guest, Dr. K. Sankaran, and earlier youth guest has spoken. Now we would like to know your views on good governance. Mr. Dhanush, please.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, yeah. Please go ahead.
Okay. Good morning to everyone. My name is Dhanush and I'm from Bangalore. And currently I'm pursuing my MBA degree in Justice KS Institute of Management, NITTE. And about myself, I'm a state level athlete and a proud NSS volunteer, participated in many national and university level camps, and also best outgoing student of Kendra College, Bangalore in the year 1920. My passion is more towards sports and drama. Okay,
excuse me, Mr. Dhanush. Are you holding your mobile in your hand?
No.
Because it's flickering. So it should not, because it's a live telecast. It should be stable. Okay, please go ahead.
Okay.
See.
Okay.
Just see to it. It should not. Your image should not move. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, sir. Sorry, sir. Okay. Let us come to the topic. I don't want you make people bored again and again by answering the same question: what is governance and what is good governance? Please tolerate me. But without answering these questions, my viewpoint towards this topic will be incomplete. Okay. So what is governance? Governance is nothing but decision making and the implementation of a decision. So there is two types of governance. One is good governance and one more is bad governance. Let us see good governance. Good governance is nothing but a valued and reasonable decision taken by the deserved decision maker. Only the good decision maker can take a good decision. The decision must not be one-sided. It must be favorable to all. The decision taken must include all the checks and balances you put in the place to ensure your decision runs smoothly, meets its objectives and stays out of the trouble. Governance also means getting expert advice on matter we don't know enough about it, plus support when making decision. Okay. In this conference, I take most of the examples of this decision taken by the government, because the decision made by the government make more impact on the people. It may impact either positively or negatively. Okay. There are good decisions are taken by the government. Some of the examples are, okay. 14th Finance Commission increased in the tax devolution of a divisible pool to states from 32% to 42% for the year 2015 to 2020. So that can provide more freedom to states to initiate schemes based on local factors. And also examples like steps taken by the government to improve business conditions, including legislation meant to improve the country's business environment, policy ecosystems, such as bankruptcy code, GST, anti-money laundering law, etc. These are some of the good decisions taken by the government, which helps people in many ways. Okay, let's comes to the bad governance. Bad governance is nothing but a selfish decision made by the decision-making body. This will happen only when we give authority to a wrong decision maker. I feel very bad to say that there are many corrupt politicians deciding in our India by sucking the poor people, but I don't know what they will get from collecting bundles of money through the corruption. Sorry to say, I don't want to bring any political parties to this conference, but I will take an example of Pampil flyover. It's in Mangalore, Karnataka. It nearly took 11 years to complete it, but the reason behind taking so much long time is unknown to anyone. I remember that whenever I pass through that place, I used to see only 2 or people doing some kind of work. So I was wondering whether it is possible to complete a giant flyover by 2 or more 3 people. Finally, somehow it completed now. Okay, now I will tell how decision can be taken with an example of beam scale. It's an oldest measurement scale. In Kannada, we call it as takkadi. Okay, if you put a 40% good politicians to the right side of it and 60% corrupted politician to the left side, it will lay down to left side because it carries 60% of weight. So it is possible to form a good governance. It is not possible to form a good governance with just one or two good people. So there is a need for everyone to join hand, to come forward to build a good governance. Even while eating, we can't eat using one or two fingers. We have to use all 5 fingers. So to eat properly. So it means that it is not possible to have a good governance with the help of one or two people. There is a need for everyone to come together for establishing and building good governance. So here I conclude by saying that in order to form a good governance, there must be a unity between the youth and the people of India. Even the preamble of an Indian constitution says the word "we, the people of India," and also it gives the right to choose and vote the perfect and the best candidate for the government. Choosing the best decision maker is in our decision, in our hand. So what I want to request is that choose a deserved one and the wise one, and not to choose the bad hand. So here I'm finishing my talk. This is my
Thank-
first conference on this platform, so I'm very thankful to Global TV, Mr. Lal Goyal sir, and Professor Dr. Sankaran sir for giving this opportunity. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dhanush, for giving your views. As you have mentioned about the good and bad governance. Yes, there are good and bad governance, but the democracy means that you have a right to choose a good government so that they can provide a good governance. But the problem, as you have mentioned, that we choose someone. Yes, if we are choosing on the basis of caste, creed, language, then definitely is a problem. If we are choosing someone who is capable, who is honest, whose integrity is this thing, then only we can have a good governance. You are 100% right that it all depends on the individuals, how we are selecting. So ultimately, the responsibility lies for the good governance with the citizens only. It's not lies with the leaders. Leaders, who is making the leaders? We are making the leaders. The civil society or the citizens of the country is making the leaders. And as our chief guest has mentioned about Japan, he mentioned that the good governance, what he has seen in Japan. In Japan, the awareness is so much. If they find any corruption or anything, they change the government and that's why so many governments have been changed because of the corruption charges, and there is a difference. That type of mindset, unless we will not have, just by raising slogans, we cannot become the patriot. We have to do it from inside, and once you will select good leaders, definitely the good governance will follow. Thank you very much, Mr. Dhanush, for giving your views. And I will add one more thing, that please, what you are saying about the bad governance, many times Dr. Shankar knows, when a person sitting on a helm of on a top, he feels, or his colleagues feels, that this decision is for the benefit of the country. But sometimes it was rebound and people say, no, it's a bad governance. So no one wants to harm. It all depends. It's like in the family, father or the mother, they never want to harm their children. But sometimes the children feel that this is a definite law, that what father is saying, don't do this, or mother is saying, come home early. So it is for the benefit, but sometimes we take it otherwise. Anyway, thank you very much, Mr. Dhanush, for giving your views. Now I would like to invite my next youth guest, and she is Miss Jayalakshmi Acharya. Miss Jayalakshmi Acharya, you have heard our chief guest, Dr. K. Sankaran, an earlier youth guest. Now we would like to know your views on good governance. Miss Jayalakshmi Acharya, please.
Yes, sir. So good morning to everyone. I am Jayalakshmi Acharya from Modbitri, Mangalore. Currently, I'm pursuing my MBA in Justice K. Segde Institute of Management, Nitte, Karkala. So we are here to talk about the governance, and our sir, Lal Goyal sir, and Sankaran sir, and all the other student guests have enlightened us with the meaning of what is governance. So governance, we all know, it is a decision-making power. It is not just the public organizations, but also the private organization take the decisions, institutions and civil society, as well as the individual can also take a decision. But the very important thing is decision should be not something which is going to affect the people. So this governance may result in public welfare or may not result in a public welfare. This is where the corrupted practices comes into picture, because of which we cannot assure the welfare of the people. So people may take decisions on their own for their own benefits at the expense of the community. But to protect the people's interest, we have a fundamental right, so that people can protect themselves from all these corrupted practices. So we can say that having a good governance is not just enough. It is also very important to have a good governance in our country as well as everywhere we work or we stay. So next, the question arises how we can analyze a governance as a good or bad. So the analysis of good governance focuses on the formal or informal people who are involved in decision-making process, and also the structure which have been set in front of the set in the place for taking the decision and implementing it. So this is how we can analyze the governance as a good governance or a bad governance. And there is mainly 3 points which makes a governance good governance. This good word adds to the governance when the decisions taken by the organization or the institution is just, is fair, and is moral. So this is when the governance can be a good governance. And what this governance intends to grant to the people is the decent standard of life to the people, to every citizen of the country, irrespective of his gender, religion, caste, or anything for that matter. And as our sir have told that for the government or the institution to be proved as a good governance, they have to mainly give 4 important factors. That is transparency, as our sir have told, right to information, and accountability, and responsible, and participation. Participation means each and everyone in the country must be able to participate in the decision making process. It might be directly or indirectly as well. So we can say that the governance can be good or bad, but it depends upon mainly whether it is constructive and positively fruitful, or whether it is corrupted and destructive in nature. Next we have to understand that good governance is just not only signifies the government of the state or the country, but it also signifies every organization, every institution as well. And the presence of good governance is also important in the families at first place, because when there is a presence of good governance in each and every organization or families or state or anywhere, it makes an individual to turn out to be a disciplined human being, as a result of which they can go ahead and govern the country in a rightful manner if they are selected as a representative of the people. So the presence of good governance in every stage becomes very important. Next, we can also say that the implementation of good governance is not that easy, but at the same time, it is not difficult also. What it demands is a professionalism, and professionalism requires a competence, political maturity, responsiveness, and responsibility as well. And as my youth guests have told, have told that it is not just the government or 1 or 2 people come together for the implementation of a good governance. It is very important that every citizen of the country, each and everyone should come forward and join their hands and help the government to implement a better governance in the country and anywhere for that matter. If it is going to be the decision making process should be, as I've told, it should be just, it should be fair, and it should be moral. And this decision should not be on the basis of religion, caste, or anything for that matter. It should be just to everyone in the world, so that each and everyone will be able to lead their life happily and make this world a better place to live. And when I'm looking for the good governance, I've come across one beautiful line which says that the good governance is invisible at the time when the things are right, but it is very effective at the time of bad. The best example for this is a pandemic. there are some government which have reacted to the situation immediately for the betterment of the people without thinking whether it is going to be a good or bad. They have shut the borders. They have locked down the entire country immediately for the betterment of the people. So, but the people of the country thought that the government is overly reacting to the situations, but then later people came to know that it is the best decision that the government could take. So what is important in the good governance is the support of the citizen of the country. If there is no support, then it is very difficult to implement a good governance. So this is my opinion about the good governance. So by saying this, I would like to conclude my views on the topic. And also I want to thank Lal Goel sir and Sankaran sir and all my lecturers for supporting me and giving me this beautiful opportunity to share my views on the topic on this beautiful platform. Thank you, one and all. Thank you.
Thank you very
everyone.
much. Thank you very much, Ms. Jayalakshmi Acharya. What you have mentioned about the pandemic and the good governance. Yes, one aspect is those government who has taken a swift action, they were termed as the one of the best governments, a good governance. But what we are seeing now, when the government is saying that please go for the vaccination, and they are providing the vaccination at doorstep, how few people are misusing, as you have mentioned, how the people take advantage, which is wrong. Because in the time of pandemic, one has to think for the entire country. How we have seen in the media that there's some people in Kolkata as well as Mumbai try to give the fake vaccine and charge the money. So if anybody wants that the government should be doing the good governance, it is the duty of the citizens also to follow, which is really beneficial for everyone. As well as there is a myth and there is a very much resistance going on about the vaccination. One should understand when the government, after doing, as you have mentioned, it's not 1 or 2%, it's a collective decision. After doing so much, taking so much expert opinion, when they have come out with this policy for the vaccination right now from above 18 to everyone should go and take the vaccine. This will be also termed as a duty for the good governance or contribution to the good governance. So we, as a civil society or the citizens, we should not back out and say that the government is not doing their duty, they are doing the bad governance. It's our duty to come out for this thing. Thank you very much for giving your views, Ms. Jayalakshmi Acharya. Now I would like to invite my next youth guest, and she is Ms. Meera Suresh. Ms. Meera Suresh, you have heard our chief guest, Dr. K. Sankaran, as well as earlier youth guest. Now we would like to know your views on good governance. Ms. Meera Suresh, please.
Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, please, go ahead.
So governance is everything, and without good governance, we have nothing. Namaste, my name is Meera Suresh, and I'm from Bhavans Vidya Mandir, Kerala. And I'm currently studying in 11th standard and have opted for humanities. So before I start, I would like to thank Sir Lal Goel and all of the members for Global Youth Activity Network for giving me such a wonderful opportunity. And today I would like to express my own views of good governance. And as Akshita Ranjan had said, in the 1992 report entitled Government and Development, World Bank has issued their own definition of good governance. And they have defined it as the manner in which power is exercised in the management of a country's economic and social resources for development. I also feel that a good and generous government should also be something where all the individuals feel secure. That is, they cannot be discriminated on the basis of caste, creed, sex, race, or religion. And when we talk about India, if we trace back in history and go to the 5th century BCE, the best example of good governance can be seen when Lord Rama ruled his kingdom of Ayodhya. Because in that time, all the citizens were happy, and that's what mattered. And also, they considered the king as the messenger of God. But today, it is is quite difficult to find countries as well as states with excellent governance, mainly because it has innumerable challenges in front of them. And criminalization of politics can be one of them. And I have read that 43% members of parliament in the Lok Sabha in 2019 faced criminal charges. That is a 26% increase from that of 2014. So I think it is necessary to amend the Section 8, that is of the Representation of People's Act 1951, so that people can disqualify a person against whom criminal charges are applied. And then corruption is another major challenge lying in front of them. While obviously human greed is the main reason for corruption, but also there is an increase in the rate of corruption that is happening in our country. And for that, the reason might be structural incentives and also poor enforcement system of punishment to the people who have corrupted the laws. And also the growing incidences of violence, the delay in justice, and marginalization of socially and economically backward people can be counted as other challenges. Yes, there are constitutional provisions which are there for the upliftment of these economically and socially backward classes, but then they are still lagging behind in so many other cases like education, economic well-being, etc. And then there are also some good initiatives that were taken by the government for good governance. Something that have made a significant shift in Indian democracy was the RTI Act of 2005. It gave the citizens an access to information, and also it enhanced the responsiveness of the government. And then there were a lot of e-government programs launched, like the Pragati, Digital India program, the MCA21, the Passport Seva Kendra, and all these made the common services accessible to common man at affordable costs. And that was a good initiative. And then another thing that I would like to add is that, as Lal Goel sir said, the term good governance does not only confine to the good governance of a country. It also adds to the proper governance in any kinds of institutions or the organization that we live in. Like, I think also family is also important, but I think good proper governance should also be there in schools and the companies that we work in, so that there is a proper decorum and a proper code of conduct, and it will make the individuals disciplined in their own ways. And when an individual witnesses good governance, it trains them, and they can also train to be a representative of a government when they grow up. So it is with the youth that it lies, that they get training, and so that in the future we can see better governance, good governance in our country. And then something else that I would like to say is that people are sometimes least interested in what happens in the state and society. So it is only when the citizens as well as the government join hands together that they can make good governance possible in our country. And then I would like to conclude by saying that there is a need to reformulate our national strategy. And we can accord our primacy to the Gandhian principle of Antyodaya to restore good governance in our country. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, Ms. Meera Suresh, for giving your views. Today, I am so happy, and I'm sure our chief guest will be also very happy to listen the views of youth, and in such a forcible and very, very clear thoughts. And this is what the purpose of the media conference is. Now, one point which Ms. Meera has raised is the criminalization of our politics. Whose fault is that? I would like to inform that in the first Lok Sabha, that is 1952, there were 26% of the MPs below the age of 40 years. Now, the current parliament, which was constituted in 2019, the age that only 12% of the MPs are below 40%, while the youth population in India up to 45 years of age is 65%. You are in majority If you feel that this person is corrupt, please don't vote. But if you are not coming out for the vote, or if you are bound to give the vote to a set mindset, no, we are voting because he might be corrupt, but we want this particular party to win, that is our fault. It's not the criminals would like to rule if they are being voted to the power. So whenever you are eligible, or if you are eligible for vote, please use your vote very judiciously. Think twice. Don't listen to anybody that this party has done so much, so we will vote for this. No, you select the candidate, see to it that candidate you should vote. Then only the criminalization can go. Otherwise, it is not possible, neither for the judiciary, not for the election commission, to remove the persons who are with the criminal background. Thank you very much, Ms. Meera Suresh, for giving your views. Now, I would like to invite my last but not the least youth guest, and she is Ms. Prachi Gupta. Ms. Prachi Gupta, you have heard our chief guest, Dr. K. Sankaran, as well as all earlier youth guests. Now, we would like to know your views on good governance. Ms. Prachi Gupta, please.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm really happy and privileged to be part of this panel of great and young minds. Coming towards me, I would cut it short because everyone has put their beautiful views. So I'm from Delhi. As you already know, sir said, my name is Prachi Gupta. I'm an engineer turned into a writer. I am a best-selling author of 4 books and a social activist. And I'm also the youngest Indian writer to be nominated in the YA category of Author Academy Awards of USA. So it was the first nomination of India in 3 years. So now, as our topic says, we are discussing about good governance. So I will be bringing that this topic is said about from very young ages. Like it has a description in Bhagavad Gita also, where Krishna, through his teachings to Arjuna, told about good governance, leadership, dutifulness, self-realization. Governance is not a single term, it's a broad term. It talks about self-realization also, because once, if you don't manage yourself, how you're going to be managing everything else around? Because the most important concept of governance is citizens. And if we come towards Bhagavad Gita, it tells that at that time when the rulership was really important and the ruler should be responsible and responsive, they said that there should be an effectiveness in working. Like Mahatma Gandhi gave the concept of Suraj. And simply in that context, Justice Louis Brandeis said that the most important public official is the private citizen, so that it is our role as a private citizen to work in the social context. So the voting, as said, is not a basic thing of doing. It's far beyond that. And if we talk about governance, governance is and the government should not be ruled like we have this idea of seeing it through political view, like it is some politics, and we judge our government on that view. But politics is individual. Governance is public officials that take the stewardship of public good. So they are totally different thing. We shouldn't be seeing government and their governance, or we say that good governance, through political lens. Governance and government is not a business. It's not an NGO or business that should center around a group of people whose results should be shown in some profit, that see, this results came, so it is good governance. It's not that. It can be like our government is doing something and we are not seeing that it is going good, because in our eyes, that is not a good thing. It's not run like a business. So in my views, what I see is, instead of criticizing, like everyone said, Lal sir also said, and Dr. Sankaran sir also said, we shouldn't be criticizing a government. Government is doing their best. We have to see what we role are playing. So in cutting it more short and coming to the end, I would say, as citizens, we should engage and demand accountability first of ourselves. We need to live up to our roles in the social contract, and then we should demand accountability of our local government. Our government needs to provide the governance that we demand, and not the politics that divide the people, that divide the governance. Because democracy of the people, by the people, and for the people will only be broken if we people fail to make it work as a whole. And good governance can't be good until we play our roles. So please play our roles. I would like to motivate our youths, be active and play an important role in our society. follow the government laws, give suggestions, and be a proper citizen of India. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Prachi Gupta. First of all, I would like to congratulate you for to be nominated in such young age
Thank
for
you, sir.
the Academy Books for their book award in US. What you have said very rightly, yes, all the citizens and the youth. When we talk about youth, peer mentorship is required. If, like today, whosoever has attended our program or who are viewing our program, if they will decide that yes, we want good governance, but we have to show to be a good citizen first. We have to become the good citizen. If you are becoming good citizen, then you should do the peer mentorship to your others, friends, colleagues, younger siblings, even to the elders, and tell them this is right. The government has done this. Why not we also follow this? And if we will start following, as Dr. Sankaran has mentioned very clearly, our chief guest today, that we saw what we are following here, what we are not following here, we see the people are following there. And this is fact. If you go anywhere in the world, here I will just give an example, very small example. If you are coming from abroad, coming to the immigration center of our airport, how the people are rushing. They want to go home very urgently. They do not want to follow the yellow line. You have to stand. But if you are going abroad, you are following all laws. Why not? After all, the human being is same. We are same, but we do not want to follow our own laws. We want to follow the rules and regulations of other countries. If we will start following here, then the good governance is good. So this is what is required. Thank you very much, Ms. Prachi Gupta, for giving your views. Now I would like to go back to our chief guest, Dr. K. Sankaran. Dr. Sankaran, you have sufficient time, about 5-6 minutes, to summarize our today's media conference. Dr. K. Sankaran, please.
I just wanted to touch base with 4 or 5 points. Actually, Akshada, I'll start with each one of them. Akshada talked about resources. Okay, I think she stopped saying about, beyond the financial and physical resources, there are other forms of resources. So we just have to go back to the story from Singapore post Second World War, or Japan, or for that matter, even United States when it started off. It's people's power that is actually primary. So I think we should give less importance, according to me. We should have completely fantastic governance when it comes to money. But maximum importance should be how the money is used, and not so much for having the money. So we have a problem in giving too much importance to having the money and not knowing what to do in a way. So it is some kind of acquisitive mentality, which ties back to the kind of scarcity mentality that Mr. Goel talked about when we are in airports elsewhere versus here. We don't stand in a QI because we think that somebody else is going to beat us. So this kind of physicality about resources needs to be understood properly. The spirit is very, very important. About Dhanish, I just wanted to kind of, what came to my mind when he was talking about was, we should know when to lead from front and when to lead from the back. If the highway is not happening, we should just get into the fray and go from the front and start doing things rather than think about making, systems. I think that issue was talked about by Jayalakshmi, who talked about, not seen, she said. I think sometimes the leader should not be seen. When things are happening well, it's better to have nobody, the leaders being not seen. I think that's a very good way to manage. And I think Mahatma Gandhi followed that. I mean, a servant leadership, trusteeship leadership, etc., is actually being leading from behind, but jumping into the front only when there is physical, when there is really danger, in which case the leader has to face the music. But unfortunately, I'm a bit critical about Western leadership theories. I have a lot of friends abroad and a lot of appreciation for the West, but most of these theories have come from the military metaphor. In military, you have to be in the front, especially if you are in infantry. And I think sometimes that is overdone in other areas. And India, what has worked and what I have found has worked is really, giving leadership opportunities for others. That really works. Jayalakshmi talked about morality. I just wanted to kind of caution a little bit here. There's one Professor Dipankar Gupta from one of the universities in Delhi. He once said a very interesting thing. He said, morality cannot be, morality is something that can be privatized. If I like something, if I don't like something,
it is my private affair. But ethics is something that cannot be privatized. You need to explain why you did certain things. So we have to be a bit careful when you talk about morality. About Meera Suresh, I'm really so heartening to see such a young person, 11th standard student here. Really, I congratulate the organizers for this. She talks about, the old stories. You call it itihas or mythology. I mean, we unnecessarily give too much importance to these words instead of giving importance to the idea of storytelling. Storytelling and story narrations, that's extremely important to understand these, gaps in between. Facts are facts, and between the facts, we have the experience. That experience is storytelling. I think Prachi would agree with me with the kind of books that she has written, and really happy to kind of have you as a co-panelist as well as other students.
Thank you.
So I think that's extremely important. About Prachi, what I was kind of thinking about was this thing about local government. I kind of sense these days that the best governance is, Prime Minister talks about maximum governance government. I think this one where the rulers, they recognize the worth of individuals coming together and create ecosystems of social capital. That is happening in a few areas like the farmer producer organizations, for instance. The earlier cooperative systems are not worked too well. In some sectors it has worked, in many sectors it has not worked. So this farmer producer organization is a really interesting model. I hope it succeeds. And I've met some people, I did a project for this and met some people and so on. And some of them are really working, where there is equality of ownership. So there is no, in finance, we talk about, majority stakeholders taking away things and, conflict of interest and so on. So without those things, things can be done. But for that, the politicians have to genuinely understand that they don't have to take on this, kind of only I can dispense justice. I can only dispense. That has to change. So what I'm telling my students also is this: if you guys can self-organize, I have a lot of time to do a lot of other things. I can look at new forms of pedagogy. I can look at many, many new things which are not existing today. That is what we should be doing. So let people to organize for themselves, and we should at different levels have that kind of social capital and means of working together so that, groups can, for that we need to have a different narrative. For that we should have different kinds of regulatory systems that people can come together. So that is the whole thing. And it requires a lot of maturity on the part of leaders to let people become leaders. And there's no difference between leadership and followership. If I want to be a good leader, I have to be a deeply good follower. I should know when to get out of the place and let others take over and create situation leaders and so on. So that conversation has to happen much more in the academy and in public space in our country, because everybody has the ability to be a leader. A leader can only be a person who can be a good follower. This is wonderful, and I will stop here. I think.
Thank you very much, Dr. K. Santran. So, viewers, you have seen today how the expert, our chief guest, has spoken about the good governance, and the youth who have given their views. It clearly shows that the awareness is there. Already we are totally aware about the good governance. Only thing is we should have self-discipline. And as everyone has mentioned, that if we will follow the proper rules or the laws framed by the government, then definitely the good governance can be shown. Yes, there are some instances when we feel that these laws are not good. But for that, there are so many procedures which the government has set when one can object, one can send those representations, but not to criticize and just to see that everything is bad. It's not like this. Governance is good, but we have to change our own habits and things. So thank you very much. Today's program has been live telecasted by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, Newsgaon se, Samvad Sarokar News, Bharat Post News, as well as shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And our endeavor is to enlighten you with the current topics every day. But as you know, that evening program called Kal Aaj aur Kal Lal Goyal Ke Sang at 4:30 p.m. we just call one achiever who has achieved in the life and what is his journey from the childhood